Hi, I'm Ben Truelove, lead designer on Microsoft Lists,
Hi, I'm Christopher Weimer, Senior Designer with Microsoft Lists.
and we're here to talk about designing a whole new experience. We have a great multidisciplinary team with designers, researchers, and UX engineers. I'm joined today, though, by my fellow designer, Christopher Weimer. So we'll start off by talking about a double-edged set of challenges we had starting off as a legacy experience in SharePoint Lists. Then we'll take a detailed look at our process and nerd out in 4 different areas. Yes, designers can be nerds too. Next, we'll talk about some recommendations we have as designers for those who want to make the most of the Lists app and give you some helpful links to get you started. When we set about creating this new app, we started from the foundation of SharePoint Lists. This had the two-edged reality of designing for those who'd known lists for years, but also we wanted to design lists to make it easy for those new to the app. One of the first things that one needs to do when working with a list, of course, is to find that list or to create a new one. Today, people have a hard time finding them because they're scattered throughout SharePoint and they're fairly good at hiding themselves. Second, working with lists is inefficient. It can be tedious to edit going to the form, and our quick edit, though more efficient, is still tooled to a 2000s level technology. Third, our automation is powerful, but it requires a lot of extensive knowledge to take full advantage of. And then last, lists are awkward anywhere but desktop today. So when we set about designing our new experience, we had a few guiding principles. One of them is to eliminate unnecessary steps, interactions, and elements to create a more effortless experience. Second, we wanted to leverage the benefits of long-term muscle memory, establish the repeated usage by keeping it predictable and adaptive. And last, we wanted to give it a personal touch so it can be memorable for those using the app. Now I'm going to hand it off to Christopher, and he's going to talk about the first deep dive.
Thanks, Ben. Let's talk about that first problem. It can be annoying to lose something. Now imagine losing something that can be found in multiple places. Your initial thought might be, wow, that's great. That gives me more of a chance to find it. But what if, in each of those places, the thing you were looking for looks slightly different than the last time you saw it? That would be extremely frustrating. This is the world that Lists currently finds itself in. Currently, there's no one single place where you can easily go and access all the lists your work depends on. Sure, you can save one to the left nav, but there is nothing here to tell you which one is a list and which one will just send you off to another page. Well, maybe you're a savvy worker and you say to yourself, no worries, I'll just go into the site contents page and look for it there. But this doesn't seem to be helping you much either. Again, nothing here loudly says, these are my lists. They tend to get lost in the mix. That icon really isn't helping out much. Maybe those are some sort of calendars, but you can always try search. So you go up, type in the name, and you get something that looks like this. Another collection of things that once again doesn't look anything like your list. Also, isn't that a completely different icon than the last screen? Not only is this taking up your valuable time, but by the time you decipher all that, you're probably a little fatigued from all that running around. At this point, you're probably thinking, I really wish there was one place I could find all my lists. We had the same thought. Lists needed a home. But like most problems, this simple statement would lead us to many more questions. And while getting back to your list was the main problem to solve, we knew we would also have to find solutions for all these along the way. If we had only focused on getting back to a list, we would have missed the mark and left you at a dead end. The design process we utilize can roughly be summed up in these next 3 slides. And while it only takes 3 slides in a PowerPoint, it takes many hours of individual and group thinking to bring you designs that solve for everything. We start off here with the wireframes. Quick and dirty, these stripped down layouts let us focus on the basic structure and flow of content. Once we get a couple stable ideas, we then lean in heavily on our research team, who works directly with you, not only in this moment, but throughout the entire design process, to help guide us in every decision we make. After that, we start to think about things like color schemes, softness of corners, how much spacing should there be, what needs to shout, and what needs to whisper. Crafting all those small details so that when you land there, you will be left feeling unimpeded for your task at hand. In an almost completely digital world, it is still important to turn these designs into a physical experience. We have had some of our most important and useful discussion during these wall reviews. Sometimes when you walk through designs like this, the gaps become blatantly obvious. And even though we can't physically be in each other's presence during COVID-19, we still have managed to morph this critical step of the design process into something new with the help of video chats and Microsoft Teams, so that at the very end, we can bring you a single, fully realized place for all your lists. And because we know that work doesn't happen always at the desk, You can now go back and find all those important lists on your phone as well. Okay, so we have solved for the first half of that equation. I need to get back to a certain list, but you still can't easily tell one list from another. And if you're anything like me, the way you name things leaves much to be desired. So how can we make that easier? Well, the best way to show you is by creating one. In the past, creating a new list would look something like this. One of the first things you might be thinking is, I came to get started on my list, but where do I go to do that? There's no real starting point or anything resembling a button for you to push. Reading through all that small text will probably help you, but is prolonging and cutting into your productivity. I think most of you would agree that starting anything should be intuitive, seamless, and fast, so that you can just get to work. We see our new Create experience as just that, a simplified dialogue that allows you to focus on what you came to do and then leads you through step by step. We have the 3 most common starting points right at the top. Simply click and you're on to the next step. But sometimes you may need a little help. You know the kind of list you need, but not necessarily how to make it. No worries. For that, we have introduced templates to inspire you and get you going just as quickly. Plus, you get to look at all these fun illustrations as you browse. For today, though, we will start with a blank list. At this moment, we start to solve that problem we talked about earlier. How can I make these stand out from one another? First, you're going to want to give it a catchy name, or at least something that makes sense to what you're doing. But here's where it starts to get interesting. Color is one of the things we as humans respond to quickest. We have a deep connection with color. That is why it can change our mood when we enter a room or cause us to stop a car. So why not use it to help you find your list? Not only is it going to allow you to quickly scan, but it's also the first step in your personalization and ownership of that list. But while color is a great first step to recognition, scanning through a bunch of lists that are all blue because everyone in the office loves blue would not be much help. So the next thing you're going to want to do is give your list an icon. Not only do these look awesome, but they are also incredibly helpful in giving your list an identity and maybe a hint at what's going on inside. And when you put these 2 elements together, you have a dynamic and personal way to differentiate between all your lists. So when you're out there in the wild looking for your list again, instead of seeing this, you will see this and be able to get on with your work. So we have solved for the logistics of finding and getting started on a list. But what would be the sense in getting you moving faster, only to have you slow back down once you have opened that list? We needed a better quick edit. If you think about building anything in life, there are usually some pretty common starting places, the foundations. These are the building blocks of any good list and the place we had to start. How many people love to start the day by sitting down and staring at a giant sheet of text? I know personally I don't, and if I had to stare at something like this, where there are heavy rule lines and dark text everywhere that keep tripping me up when I'm trying to scan the page, I would be left feeling pretty uninspired and tired by the time I got done with my work. We knew we could do better, and we knew we owed it to you to do better, so we did. Stripping away everything and then building it back up. We knew we could bring you a detailed, well-crafted UI that leaves you feeling calmed and focused for the task at hand. A UI that didn't impede you, but instead was there for when you needed it, but got out of your way when you didn't. So how do we do it? Overall, we still think that content works best on a white background, but that doesn't mean everything has to be white. By using a white sheet on a gray background, you can start to see how we're sectioning off the page and allowing your eye to focus on the thing you came to see, your content. Like most things in this world, if something is sharp and pointy, you probably don't want to go near it. The same can be said for shapes. By rounding the corners across every surface with varying degrees of radii, everything became much more approachable and inviting to use. But your list shouldn't feel like a forest of lines and boxes. Once you're in your flow, you should stay there. We've made that easier through a couple simple but effective decisions based on your feedback. We started with lightening the color of the grid lines. Then we used a couple of varying degrees of thicknesses. For the horizontals, we used a thicker 2-pixel line. For the vertical, we used a thinner 1-pixel segmented line. Those heavier horizontals and segmented verticals are the key to allowing you to quickly scan rows without feeling trapped along the way. Grid lines can only do so much though. They can't solve for the why something is there. For that, good typography was needed. Using a semi-bold font helped us ground the X and Y axes, allowing us to quickly and efficiently identify the key information on that page. We toned back the rest of the text and made it slightly smaller so that when you finally see them both together, they don't compete for your attention. So now we have great foundations. You can focus on your information better, you can scan the page quicker, but we knew we needed more than that. You needed a list that responded to you, helping you to stay more engaged with your work. This can only be done through good interactions. These are the simple things that happen during use that are so natural, you couldn't imagine them ever not being there. They make getting in there and doing your work just plain easier. In the past, you may have noticed that moving and scrolling around the page was a pretty underwhelming experience. The list seems to be lifeless and would take some effort to get up and going when you needed it. With key content disappearing and nothing to tell you where you are at the moment, it's understandable that getting your work done might take a little longer than expected. So what would make your life easier? Well, we thought the first fundamental step would be a subtle response on hover. This seems pretty obvious, but we were surprised at how quickly this made a big improvement to scanning information and confidence when selecting. Just by adding a simple light gray background, you're able to be grounded in a particular row and easily focus on a single item. Knowing exactly where you are saves you time and energy, helping you be more productive. But what happens when you need to scroll a little farther down and around your list? Losing context when a title or header scrolls off page is only going to slow your work back down. That information needs to be steadfast, remaining there and easily accessed at a moment's notice, helping to inform your decision making. This is such a fundamental truth that when scrolling, we locked both the left column and headers in place. Now, no matter how far down you go in your list or which column you need to interact with, you will have the context and quickly be able to make informed decisions or find that piece of data you were looking for. But even with all this, sometimes the thing you're looking for is all the way at the bottom of the screen and looks an awful lot like the thing sitting next to it. And you probably don't want to take your finger and scan up and down the column just to make sure it's the right one. That's why having a bolder, clearer indicator on selection makes this incredibly easy. No matter where you are, your content is now faster than ever to navigate to. Even with all these previous updates, if you're working with inefficient ways to select and add data, your productivity and flow are probably still going to suffer. So one of the last big pieces we needed to rethink was editing. Editing your data should be intuitive and quick. I want to show you 3 different column types that have been redesigned to be just that, lightweight and efficient. I think everyone has had to make a choice before, but this current experience probably doesn't leave you feeling very confident that you're about to make the right one. The editor feels sunken into the canvas and out of date. Every choice in that dropdown looks the same. But what if the surface was pulled forward in space so that it felt active and ready? This is something that you'll see throughout all our new editors. Filtering to find your perfect choice is now upfront and right where you need it. And with the addition of color, those individual choices now have the ability to be scanned and grouped so much quicker than before. So let's talk about people. It probably doesn't look like it right now, but this is a column of people. Science has proven that people love faces. Names alone cannot connect with us as quickly as a face can. With the addition of people's pictures in a light gray pill shape, these names instantly become more recognizable and easier to scan throughout the list. And when it comes to finding that particular person, there's now an easy search area built right in. A yes or no is already simplistic, but with the current interaction, you are still 3 clicks away from either one. With something inherently binary, there is a better and quicker way to make that decision. With a single click, your choice is made and you're back on your way. You can now effortlessly look through a list and see what is checked and what is not. By updating the foundations and interactions and the editing capabilities of Quick Edit, working with your lists will now be one of the easiest parts of your day. And now here's Ben again.
Thanks, Christopher. Today we have powerful tools that allow lists to drive automated processes across Microsoft products, but it requires a great amount of knowledge. Everyone can benefit from automation, and Rules is a simple form of automation based on list data. We wanted to give ordinary users tools to implement automate team processes quickly and beautifully. One of the things that we realized was no code needed. The key to sharing automation to the masses was to remove that need for code. Today, these tools are driven by Power Automate. It's a powerful automation tool. And as you can see here, it's showing that power. With knowledge of web services, logic, coding chops, and maybe a little bit of feng shui, you can support very complex automated processes. However, not a lot of people out there have all that combined knowledge, but they still might want to take advantage of this, just like myself. So recognize that you simply want to be on top of your work, such as to know if there's a change done to a list. Early in the design phase, we recognized that lists need a simple automation solution that just works right out of the box. So we were determined to minimize the amount of configuration needed to do, and really just want to know what the condition is and what the action is. So the interface on the right is an early iteration we started with. Cut things down, we simplified things, but it still didn't look right. It still was hard to read. I'll get back to that later. A few of the things that we knew we needed to do was to make sure that rules start plainly by asking what you want to do. Then we want to make sure that you know when a rule is triggered and what will happen. And then last, we want to make rule building smart enough to give you the right options at the right time. Let's take a walk through rules now. The new rules come out of the box under the Automate command. I'm going to select Create a Rule. The first screen lets you see a list of actions that rules can do for you. Let's notify someone when a column changes. Selecting this brings us to a sentence that tells you in plain language how the rule works. So you start off by selecting the column you want to monitor. This is a patient list, and we want to know when a checkup is coming soon, so we'll choose last checkup. Now I want to choose between. At the bottom, there's is between. And now the sentence dynamically changes to make sense for is between. So now we choose the start date. I pick a specific date here. Yeah, the 1st of September. And then I'm going to choose the second date. Now you can also choose a relative date, which is today. And then now, of course, we want to send it to that doctor. So we'll select Assign Doctor. There are quite a few cases that can be automated this way from just the first 4 of these intent-based rule recipes with more to come. And then last, of course, when you're done, it takes you to a list of all the rules that are set for this list. So you can turn each one off and on independently and quickly. Today, you can view a list from your phone, but it can be better. Going back to our principles, we wanted lists to be predictable and adaptive. This means if someone uses lists on the web, for example, they'll know how to use it on a phone or in Teams. We also wanted lists to take advantage of the natural methods of the form factor and feel genuine on all platforms. Here are 2 current screens on a phone today. Note how things are workable, but certainly not ideal. The left nav pushes content to the right. It can be challenging to touch mouse-optimized controls, and you need to pan around to access the controls that should be right at your fingertips. I won't go into the details like Christopher did earlier, but we had a week-long workshop where Prashant, our mobile designer, led a sprint to plan out this entire app from start to finish. We had participation for both design, program management, engineering, research, even writers. So here's what we had. In addition to making lists predictable, we also didn't want any compromises between the web and mobile. As you can see here, you can freely look at any number of columns in the list and still see what row you're on. If you want to edit a field, you can tap on a cell and get an OS-specific action sheet for entering data. Our designer likes to call that Quick Edit for mobile. Notice when you're selecting a speaker in one of the columns, the action sheet automatically moves up to allow for the soft keyboard. And then when I scroll over to date, you'll notice that action sheet has a very iOS-centric date control. It makes it natural to select your dates. You'll also notice on the main screen that it's designed to allow all of your favorites to fit comfortably at your fingertips. We also wanted to make sure that our experience was accessible. What you see here are 2 screens using the iOS large text setting. And we do that by applying iOS typography so it can work with the native accessibility settings. This principle also applies to other platforms like Teams. Here's your list from within the List app. Now here's that same list in its team. Note the consistent location and prominence of the new item button, though using the style of Teams. View controls are also in a common location along with other commands. You'll see the same list with the same capabilities, but within the comfort of your own team. All right, so it's not often you get to hear from us designers, so we thought you might want to take home some of our favorite things we like about lists.
Hi, one of the things we really like about the new List app are the formatting options you can do within a list. So especially around choice columns. So I'm going to select availability, which is a choice column, and then go into column settings and then choose format this column. This provides a number of options that you can use, and one of the most exciting ones we have here is choice pills. So I'm going to select choice pills, and note it automatically changes all of your choices to small pills. But I'm not quite thrilled with the out-of-the-box colors. There's some particular color meanings that I want to assign to these, so I'm going to click Edit Styles here. And now within that, it's going to show all of the available options. and there's a little A pencil here, and I'm going to go ahead and click that, and that enables us to just quickly change the pill color of each one of the pills. But I want to go into do a little bit more. So in this change style option, it allows you to change the fonts, the font size, make it bold, italic, underline, add an icon, borders, and of course the fill color as well, and the font color. I'm going to go ahead and change the fill color to green because available is obviously a good thing. And then to match, I'm going to change the text color to green to make it blend really well. And I'm going to give it a thumbs up to give it a little bit more style. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to change the other options too. So out of stock is actually a pretty bad thing. So I'm going to go ahead and make that one red, and then change the font color to match and make that red as well. And I think I'll give that a thumbs down. Now another thing we can do, it's a handy little trick that I like to do, is in pills, if you add a bottom border, it actually gives a shadow effect or a bevel effect. I'm going to add that for extra emphasis. And then of course, almost out. Well, it's already yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that yellow. Now I'm going to go ahead and save my options. And there it is, easy as that, custom choice pills. Another feature I really like is the gallery view. So if you go under your all items, you can select gallery, which is another view type that appears in this menu now, and it'll give you a more visual representation of items in your list, especially for things like maybe a product gallery, which we have here, or a contact list, or something with more highly visual items. So in this case, we got a pretty vanilla setup, but by default, it's going to be a bit nicer of a setup. We're going to choose some smart defaults, but in this case, for demo purposes, I just went ahead and set it to be fairly basic, just to show you how you can edit this. So if you go back into the view menu and select Format Current View, brings up that pane, and then in the card designer style of select, you can hit Edit Card. And now here you have a pane that works very similarly to show and hide columns, where you can go ahead and move things up and down. I'm going to move snapshot near the top because, in all honesty, I actually want to actually show a snapshot, and I'd like to have it front and center. So by default, it ends up being a link, but I want to go ahead and show preview, so I can turn on that toggle for an image to show the preview. Now that's looking pretty good. There isn't a whole lot here. And I think the titles might be getting in the way to a cleaner visual. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the titles. I mean, the names of the items are fairly evident, and so are the prices as well. So I also want to add in a form factor, and then also availability. I think I'd like to move availability up ahead, and there we go.
All right, that concludes our designer's tour of Microsoft Lists. Here are some sessions on lists that will help you get started and productive. I'm going to wait for a moment and let you all get a screen capture. If you want to learn about the foundational components we used, read up on our progress, plans, or hear news on lists, here are some handy links. Thanks for watching, and have fun making lists that are beautiful and useful.